And we're live.
We are live, and this is the Christmas special. And the only thing that is Christmas and special about this edition is I'm wearing a Christmas cardigan. So there we have it. Yeah. So why EV, chaps? Why EV?
Why not?
Exactly. And
why aren't we wearing Christmas jumpers? And you are.
my Christmas jumper has disappeared into the abyss, and as awful as it is, I don't want it to disappear into the abyss because that means I'm going to have to buy another Christmas jumper, which only comes out once a year. But yeah,
I've got
it's not a particularly well-worn garment, and after
no. Well,
9 years, it's still mint. So
this cardi normally comes out late November, but that's about it. But we've got some really interesting topics to talk about today. I want to talk about the electric Dodge Charger. Kevin, what did you want to talk about today?
Well, I'm going to talk about the post I did on LinkedIn, which just said you can go long distances in an EV that seems to blow up massively. And you'd swear by some of the comments, I'd gone out and run over their cat, because literally the hate I got from that from saying you can go long distances.
You wouldn't have run over it, Evan, because you wouldn't have got that far. It's an EV after all. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Would have run out well before then.
Alex, what about yourself? What do you want to talk about?
Talk a little bit about my pre-Christmas wheels. Well, there will be my Christmas wheels as well. But I've been driving around for a few days in the MG Cyberster, which is quite an interesting new addition to the ever-expanding lineup of EVs in the UK at the moment. So
yeah.
The question I have for you is: have you had the roof down yet?
Yep.
Proper hardcore. Now it's cold and wet.
Zipped up to here, hoodie around my ears. Yeah, and actually, with the heaters on and all the rest of it, it's fine. So yeah, it's
that must be really efficient for the heaters in an EV trying to heat Cardiff.
Yeah.
Well, shall we? Well, let's start with the Cyberster. Seeing as though it's such a Christmassy winter vehicle. So you're giving it a test drive. Which version are you driving of the Cyberster?
So I've got the top spec one, the dual motor. I think it's 496 horsepower, 3.2 seconds to 60, all-wheel drive. And I think what struck me about it, I mean, I've seen pictures and I've obviously seen it at events and bits and pieces like that. Actually having a chance to look around it in person and sort of see it in car parks and places where I've taken it is how much it doesn't look like an EV. You know, there's this whole thing about kind of bulk and having to have kind of a chunk in the floor pan that you can see that's reflected in the height of the car, which is obviously why a lot of EVs are SUVs and so on, is that it's easy to hide that mass visually. You can tell when you're sat in it because you don't have a tub really. You do still feel like you're sat on top of the battery. But the seating position and the side profile and everything on it is really quite impressive what they've done and how they've managed to package it into a vehicle that you wouldn't know was electric. Although you could argue with that, you've actually got an enormous amount of redundant space in that silhouette because there's nothing under the front except a sheet of plastic and presumably air conditioning gubbins underneath it and steering mechanism and other bits and pieces.
So how quick is it? Because it's being the full fat one, full drive and all the rest of it. Was it 0-63?
3.2 seconds. So what's quite interesting about it is I think people kind of go, "Oh, EVs, one trick pony and all the rest of it." And there are some earlier EVs where they've been very fast, but they've been quite almost nervous at times with the throttle. Like you kind of feel like you're kind of holding it back from just kind of going poof and taking off down the road. This one in the normal comfort mode is really easy to just potter around in. The throttle's really nicely set up in it, and then you put it in super sport mode, which is a thumb button on the steering wheel. The dials change, and then it's pretty bloody terrifying in a straight line. Really, I mean it's motorbike levels of quick. It really is staggering. I mean, there's plenty of EVs that'll do that, but it rides like a sports car. It's not a kind of a luxurious long distance tourer, but it feels really premium inside, kind of quite Audi-esque. Everything's kind of quite nicely weighted in it. I've been really impressed with how it drives and so on. As I say, I mean, I've seen a couple of people who've said online that, it doesn't ride very well. It is a sports car and it is on large wheels. I don't really know what you're expecting it to.
What was the balance? good? Because I was told by someone else that the balance is really nice on it.
Yeah, no, it feels really well sorted. I mean, I haven't been. A lot of what I've done is around town driving and kind of motorways. I want to take it for a spin through. Well, I'm on the doorstep of all sorts of lovely scenery around here, so I want to take it for a proper drive at some point in the next couple of weeks. So I've got it until, because the press garage is closed. As a quirk of that, I've got it until January, so
Nice.
the 2nd of January. So I've got it all over Christmas and New Year. So
Is there
I've
a
got
drift mode?
time.
Drift mode.
If there is, I haven't found it yet.
Yeah,
But that's because I'm an angel. I'm driving it around town mostly, and I wouldn't dare do a thing like that around town.
Well, commuter branch line makes a good point. Who do we think is going to drive a car like that?
I don't think they're going to sell many of them, but I think they've got the flexibility to do interesting cars, and why not do it? The Stinger was also excellent. Yes, that's very, very true.
Yeah. What's the price of it? What's the starting price and
the one I've got is 60k, which I think is
okay,
staggeringly good value actually for
that's Model 3 performance money, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's a two-seater roadster.
And it's a two-seater roadster with crazy doors. I mean, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, they're never going to sell massive amounts of them, but if it gets people talking, it gets people coming into showrooms, and it gets people kind of going, oh right, so not all EVs are kind of rocket fast SUVs, which is kind of becoming a norm, just because of the way the market is. It's nice to see some variation in terms of silhouettes and people, stuff that will get people talking, and if it gets people talking about EVs, I think that's a great thing.
So is it a suitable halo car for the brand then?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. And
because I did,
yeah.
But going back to the performance thing, I saw an article, weirdly from, I think it might have been one of the newspapers. It's usually anti-EV, but they did say that should there be some sort of test for people getting in these, going from your normal commuter car with like 120 brake horsepower to suddenly being in a 500 brake horsepower or higher car.
Could hear, because I had the roof down, the tyres were trying very hard to grip the road the first time I floored it. I mean, they were doing it, they were managing it, but just.
That sounds like the MG4 X-Power, because I remember driving that and giving it some real stick. I've only a very, very small kind of test track, and that thing was scrabbling for grip all over the place, and the brakes were like, oh my god, yeah, they worked, but
yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, the development in MG, the speed at which things are improving is really quite impressive. I mean, I had an MG5, which I have quite a soft spot for 6 months, and that's only 165 horsepower, and it was on, I think, Bridgestone tyres. They weren't like a rubbishy brand, but that car, like, I'd cry if I was doing long journeys. I'd usually do them in eco mode just to stretch the range out as much as I could. But then I'd stick it in sport for like overtaking and stuff. That car would light up its inside wheel on white lines as you were overtaking lorries. Like you'd pull out, and if you put your foot down, you'd floor it, and you could feel it kind of going, Christ, it's snatching at the road. It was a little bit iffy, like it. A little unfinished unpolished, I think is probably a nice way of saying it than unfinished.
Well, Dean's got an interesting question. Have you had water in the door pockets yet?
I'm going to have to check that after the podcast. In
fact, the door open.
If you want me to disappear off and have a look, I can go. We've had plenty of rain this week, so
there we go. I don't understand this though. The TYCO. What do you mean by that? TYCO. I don't know.
No.
Not sure. I've got a couple more. Kudos to MG for effort. Viva la difference. The Kia Stinger was hands down a BMW Beta all day. But all my mates bought Audi S4s, AMG Mercs. And yeah. Do you know what? I did see one on the road recently. They were supposed to be pretty good when they first came out, the Stinger.
They were staggeringly good. They were a better German like sports coupe than the German sports coupes. I don't know how they managed it, and to the extent that when you get into like an Audi S model or kind of the higher end of the I mean, the one I drove was the full fat V6. I think it was a twin turbo V6. Yeah. I was like, how does this thing manage to handle like this, but also ride really well on large wheels? And how come the Germans, who used to be the masters at doing that sort of stuff, were behind with it? It's a fantastic bit of kit, Stinger. It's one of those ones that I think I'd have in my garage of curiosities at some point if money were no object, just because I think it's a really interesting piece of kit.
Didn't the South Korean brands poach a lot of German engineers, though?
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess it was more German engineered than it was.
Yeah.
They've bought a lot of talent.
Well, the N brand, wasn't it? The Hyundai N division, they had that German, I can't remember what he focused on, but they definitely had a BMW guy, didn't they?
And you recently left, and the guy that's doing a lot of the chassis development work over there did the cars like the Focus RS, came from Ford.
Okay, interesting. The Taycan has sold plenty based on very low company car tax. Can the MG size to do the same? Yeah, potentially.
The difference, I guess, is that it depends on how flexible your policy is. I know some people are, possibly salary sacrifice schemes, perhaps, yes, but it depends on what sort of body styles you're allowed and whether you're allowed to have convertibles and two-seaters and things like that on some, because some of them will restrict that. But yeah, that is what an amazing company car to have.
I mean, I'm asking all the questions here today, but do you know what the entry level one is costing?
Off the top of my head, no, because I've focused in on the one. Hang on,
have a little goosey.
Because apparently that one's the more. Apparently
I've heard
more MG-ish, like the old one.
54k. 54k. Well, 54,995. So it's a $5,000 difference for the dual motor.
That's quite a lot of. That's not as much difference as I thought it was going to be. Sorry, what are you going to say, Kev?
So with the MG though, I mean, it's the two-wheel drive one. Those of people who've driven that said that feels more fun because it's the one that Alex has got at the moment is too quick. So it's like rocket ship quick, but actually the two-wheel drive one feels more. It feels a bit lighter, and people have said likened it more to like an electric MX-5. Well, it's a bit big for an MX-5.
And a bit powerful for an MX. Yeah. It's a bit like, I suppose, I'm going to be interested to see what the two are like, because I mean, continuing the MX-5 analogy, I mean, I love the 1.5 MX-5. The ND generation MX-5 with the 1.5 is a lovely, lovely thing. It's really good fun to drive around. It's not very fast, but just a really engaging thing to drive. But then you get in the 2 litre, and I'm like, just having that bit of extra kind of performance on tap does. It does add to it. Like I think I'd go for the 2 litre, not the 1.5.
I remember it being on.
Go on, sorry, mate.
I remember it being on an MPG marathon the same year as the Caterham was on the MPG marathon. Yeah, the Caterham doesn't feel particularly substantial when you get in it, though, does it? That's a very thin bit of metal you climb over to get into. You think that's not going to be great in a side impact.
You're thinking too sensibly.
Good job. There's side impact bars in the glass fiberglass TVR, eh? But yeah, it's the talking about efficiency, as Kevin mentioned. It'd be interesting once you've had it for a bit to see what kind of efficiency you're getting out of it. And I'm sure that Kevin will have a go at some point, maybe when he gets one, or if there's other opportunities.
It was showing 2.8 from the drive down. I think I'll be able to beat that in it. I suspect that's probably with heaters on and so on and so forth. And obviously it's in cold weather. I think over a longer trip and just kind of, but then there's always the temptation to just kind of give it the beans, I think, really. Be interested to see what it's like. As I say, I haven't been any real distance in it because I've been so busy this last week and I've not been very well either. So kind of having an opportunity to really go off and drive it properly has not come up yet, but it will. So I'm looking forward to kind of really getting to grips with it.
I think that's the thing that people forget, the EV haters forget, is what 500 brake horsepower car could you get efficiency out of as well? But with EVs, you get the best of both worlds. When you're not using that power, it's not wasting it.
Whereas nailed it, mate. Yeah, absolutely. And this is what, yes, okay, rust has been remapped, but I can quite easily get 4 and a bit miles per kilowatt easily. And it was interesting, you said about in comfort mode, it doesn't get away from yourself. I found that when I drove the BMW M50 electric i4, that wanted to go. that car I would lose my license in. My Tesla is just chill. It is proper. Even in like any mode, I'm just relaxed in that car, and that's the sort of car that I need with my reputation. So, but yeah, Kev. So we spoke right at the beginning that you had a post that went a bit wild on LinkedIn. Tell us about what that was all about.
So last week I had the Ioniq 5 with the bigger battery on test. So I did some realistic distance in it. Over a week I put 920 miles on it. And
is it full drive or rear-wheel drive? Sorry,
just the rear-wheel drive. I mean, all-wheel drive's nice, but actually for every day, do you actually need all-wheel drive? Probably not. But I put 900 miles on it in a week. I used basically 90% of that was my off-peak charging. So I didn't use any public charging. So I just put simple post. You can do long distances and I put the proviso that if you charge at home. And the number of people that reacted to that's my highest views on a LinkedIn post, is just about to push over 150,000 views on it. But the views of like, I just don't get the number of people said, you can't do that, you're lying and stuff. And it's like, literally how? It's like, I've driven that and it's like the resources, and they said, people can switch the number of conspiracies that I got from it. Like they'll just switch the electricity off and it'll geofence in a 15-minute city and it'll shut down and everything like that. And it's like all modern cars have like telematics. You look at all the Hyundai Kia range, pretty much apart from the entry level one, they've all got Blue Link on them, whether they're petrol, diesel, hybrid or electric. So I just don't understand why this is why we've got this podcast, isn't it? Because it's balance. Why people have so polarized view. And some people got really annoyed when I said it's about balance. I don't, and I refuse to hate petrol cars on it. And they're like, no, and this they couldn't compute that I liked.
You must only like EVs.
This is the one standout point, which I told Alex, which I think made Alex laugh, is somebody said that the Ioniq 5 looks a bit like the Lancia Delta. Which it does. And then someone then commented saying, now that was proper engineering, the ultimate in reliability. And they commented on how reliable and how well engineered it was. I may have pointed out some, apart from if you wanted to get in the back seats, because the front seat didn't move far enough for the opening because it was a big bucket seat. But yeah, the number of people who said, no, that's proper engineering, much more reliable than these electric cars. And I was thinking, I'm sure it may have had a reputation, some of the earlier Lancias. Don't get me wrong, really good 80s iconic car, but some of them pretty much would rust as you watched them outside when it rained. So
yeah. I've actually owned a Lancia HF Turbo, which I think the chassis was coming away from the body. But to be fair, I did get it for free after a swift conversation in a Thailand Bangkok pub. But I did. The engine was still working. Drove it. Brakes weren't working, so that was fun. But yeah, that's the only Lancia I've ever driven or owned. That was exciting stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's we do want to try and keep it balanced. Yes, this is focused around EV. We don't hate petrol cars. I'm not a massive fan of diesel. I'll be completely honest. But it's just it's horses for courses, isn't it? And the fact that you've done 900 miles and some people can't believe it because it goes against their, beliefs or, whatever they're fed on this, that, the other, it's yeah. And this is, yeah. And
it costs £24.90. I worked it out based on my home charging. I mean, okay, you can add a couple of pounds maybe for efficiency losses on there but it's still, you're still probably under £30 to do 900 miles. You can't really knock that.
All hail Sir Kevin of long range and Lightfoot.
I mean, I wasn't trying, and it did. Was it 4.1 for the whole time I had it? I didn't think 4.1 was awful with colder weather. I had the heating on and stuff. I was doing motorway speeds.
This is interesting. Foxhound Follies. I owned a Delta for a few days once. Made a profit by driving to the scrapyard and kept the wheels. Nice work. Yeah, so it's interesting to see that any EV post. And I suppose this is why a lot of the media and a lot of people are talking about EVs, because it's such a divide. It's like you're either in one camp or another, you know, and this is all about trying to diffuse those camps and just trying to say, okay, EV is great in certain circumstances. It's not great for everyone, you know. It isn't, you know, people that live in a flat, you know, is it going to be cost effective for them to own an EV? Probably not, depending on their circumstances. So, and this is why, funnily enough, I'm going to have on the channel soon talking to people from Turbocharge and Gully. Is basically having a gully through your pathway if you've got a terraced house to help you charge your car. So it'd be interesting to have a chat with them. So that's going to be coming up on the channel at some point. What's that? Kevin, you need to give a lesson to the Mac Master.
Actually, that he came up in conversation on that LinkedIn post as to show that a Porsche loses lot. He's the one with the Porsche Taycan, the one that's lost a lot of money. Strange enough, because it's a high performance Porsche. That if
you'd have bought a Porsche Panamera, it'd been fine.
Yeah, I'm sure. Don't they lose a lot of money, the Panameras as well? Because if you can afford one, you would probably rather a brand new one, not a used one.
Yeah, get a car that, you know, doesn't lose its value like a Bentley or something.
Yeah. I mean, that is the thing, though, isn't it? Which people forget is the issue with some of those high performance cars is they come with their 3-year-old one still comes with Porsche servicing costs. So you maybe getting the car a lot cheaper, but you've still, if you need a set of discs, you're losing probably a couple of grand in Porsche main dealer prices. I mean, we actually experienced that in the classic car show. When you look at the prices of some of the cars, so you can get, what was it, a DB9 for the same price as a 205 GTI. But obviously the Aston Martin is going to be associated with Aston Martin servicing costs. So the one to run, you know, so £31,000, I think it was, for probably I think it was about 2010 plate Aston Martin. And then like an old 205 GTI was the same price. But which one's going to be cheaper to run and keep on the road? It's not going to be the Aston, is it?
What's going to be more fun to drive? I mean, the Aston's it's just a completely different class of vehicle, of course, but it depends on what you're into at the end of the day, isn't it? And this doesn't really nicely come on to what I wanted to talk about. But I thought it was really interesting to talk about. I was just watching a review from Rich Rebuilds, and love him or hate him, he's got an interesting YouTube channel, does all sorts of EV stuff, petrol stuff. I remember first seeing his video. I think he did the video of the EV converted Audi S5 when that first came out, and I think that really bumped his channel. And he's done all sorts of weird stuff, and he's got I think he's involved in the electrified garage, a little bit like Cleveland EV in America. And he was invited to the electric Dodge Challenger launch, and it's really interesting to see, you know, their response to that vehicle. You know, a muscle car, which was electric, which I don't personally think kind of goes hand in hand. I don't think it really works. You know, I don't think you can have a muscle car that is electric. I think it needs to be called something different, because with muscle car, you've got the noise, you've got the you know, all these things that make up the muscle car, the V8. That's the kind of thing that makes, you know, whether it's a supercharged one or what have you. And I think it's very, very difficult. And I think it's a lot of these brands. I'm not going to say the L word because Alex will be upset. These traditional brands will, you know, try and encapsulate a classic vehicle which has got such a strong following, and they try and redo it into something electric. And I just don't think it works. I mean, there are certain cars where it has worked, because we've talked about them before, and I'm trying to remember what they are. Obviously, the Capri hasn't worked. But
Renault 5, you could argue.
I was just going to say Renault 5, Fiat 500. I mean, you could argue that sports cars work in that. I say sports cars, supercars as well. But I think you're right. The muscle car thing has got a very specific set of ingredients, hasn't it?
Yeah. And I think it's also very much for the diehard petrol head, you know. And when I say diehard, I mean a lot of the petrol heads that buy those kind of cars anti-EV in most cases, if you're going to generalize. And I suppose it's, this is why I think it's going to be very, very difficult to try and make the electric TVR win people round, because that is seen as pretty much the same thing. Quite a die-hard petrolhead car, the TVR. So, having the fake noise, I just don't think it really works. It never sounds as good.
For me, I think, I mean, I agree, and but I would say that the Charger has kind of not been a traditional Charger for a while. So I guess there's a little softening in terms of the brand. I mean, the last one was a 4-door kind of liftback type thing, wasn't it? It's not a bad looking car, but not what you imagine when you think of it as a Charger. I think with the noise, you're dead right, because I think that somebody who is interested in a high performance EV isn't necessarily going to see the lack of noise as a deal breaker. Somebody who does see the lack of noise as a deal breaker isn't going to be interested in it being synthetic. And so you end up with this kind of strange, like, you need pleading neither of them. So
yeah, that's a good point. Dean's mentioned is the Ioniq 5N's had some amazing views and petrolheads are blown away. Surprising what a bit more engagement feedback does to driver engagement. And I completely agree with you there. I think the look of the N has literally nailed it in terms of it is quite extreme looking, and it kind of ticks all the boxes for the kind of car enthusiast into that type of vehicle, and it's got the gear shifts, which is like intriguing to a lot of petrol heads, I think, that aren't normally into EVs. And the noise, I think some of the noises are quite good, and as some people might know, and the guys will know, I've got supposedly the exhaust sound system getting fitted to Rusty on the 10th, and I don't see myself ever being out there doing ice noises in the Tesla, because it just feels really cringy to me that, and I know some people love it, that's great, that's their thing, but me personally, it just doesn't feel right to me. So I'm going to be playing around with all the other different noises, and hopefully we can get a noise that does work. And whether that's the noise of horses clip-clopping down the street, then so be it.
But no one ever faked those, did they? Like, let's have a horse noise in this new car.
Oh, the Tesla has that ability, Kevin. So I'll do that one for sure.
Cars fake all sorts of things though already. If you think about the last time you put your indicators on, unless you're driving something like a Jeep Avenger, tick, 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 tick's not a relay making that noise anymore.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, the when you've got it in Santa mode, like we had in the Tesla earlier, it does the jingle noise, and your car on the screen turns into Santa Claus with with the reindeer, and then all the other cars on the road are reindeers too.
But with that, does it normally make a ticking noise? Because that then really shows you that it is faking it normally when it's making the ticking noise. I can't think. It's been a while since I've driven a Tesla. I can't remember what the standard noise is.
Well, jingling mode, fart noises, if you want the fart noises. I can't even remember what the normal indicators sound like, weirdly. There we go. Yeah. There is a demographic for whom the fake stuff works. People of my age, but definitely not me. Well, I think with the, I don't know. I think as Russell mentioned when I was doing the Lotus EV conversion drive with him in his Tesla one, he said he did feel like he needed a noise, just needed that feedback, as I think Dean mentioned earlier. That engagement. I think there is a bit of that that's needed, and if the TVR, once it's ready to go full chat down the road, if it sounds like the Porsche, the Eco Classics did, which had that nice little whistle as it went past at the start of my normal videos, then that's a massive tick for me. But whether I want to amplify that, I probably do, but we'll see what happens there.
There's some quite interesting. Mazda does it. I've mentioned it before, I'm sure. The MX-30 makes a noise based on the amount of load you put on the powertrain. It just doesn't sound like an engine, but it's a kind of a hum. So when you floor it, you get kind of but it just gives you a sense of interacting with the machine as opposed to it just being But for me, I just think EVs sound different to ICE vehicles in the same way that a 4-cylinder sounds different to a V8 and a V8 sounds different to a V12.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can have a purposeful electric car noise, can't they?
Exactly. Let's get used to that. Let's get used to that.
Well, there are some futuristic noises on the sound exhaust thing, so I'll play around with those, see how they go. I'm looking forward to the front-wheel drive Renault 5 Alpine. It's clever to leverage the nostalgia with EV tech. If it's done well, sell like hotcakes. VW have yet capitalised on the buzz. There's some really cheap deals on ID7. I think it was like £200, and it was like $2,500 in for an ID7. I saw just recently.
Actually, quite a good car, the ID7. I mean, it's very boring, but it's an electric Passat, so it's kind of allowed to be. Yeah. It's actually quite a competent car. It's a big step. It's the most competent of all the ID vehicles that I've driven.
You can get that lovely Aura Cat I pointed out to you on Auto Trader.
£13,000. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I can't remember if I've seen Misha's drive around Nürburgring in the Ioniq 5. I think I have. But I do love watching this stuff. I love it, especially when it's something random like a Twingo with a turbo VTEC K20 in it. That's a bit.
But if you listen to the EV people that commented on my post, you can't drive an EV around the Nürburgring. It won't make it round. It'll be flat, probably 2 miles in.
Well, yeah, there is some arguments to that because I know that the Tesla goes into limp mode and because the battery gets a bit hot. But the Ioniq 5 End, I don't think did that. I think it did really well. And the Tesla Plaid managed to do it. My kids have had Santa mode on all week. There we go. Standard. I'm 62, by the way. Yeah, we met, didn't we? Foxhound Follies. It was good to catch up at the London EV show. I wasn't doing, any videoing at all. I was checking out the VW Transporter Tesla powered thing that was there actually, T4 or whatever it was. Did Moggy add noises to the Tesla Rosses? Ben Collins was most complimentary. I don't think he did. When he took me out, I don't think it was fully finished because he wasn't giving it all the beans, but I don't think there is any noise to that. But like I said, the best EV conversion I've driven, which had an amazing noise to it, was the Eco Classics 911, Design 911, the green one. Go back and watch that video. Really enjoyed that video. And that the Mika, was brilliant fun. So much fun, but not really for the weather in this country.
I think Ben Collins left some black lines on the workshop floor for the Tesla Rossa.
No, really.
So I think he may have put his foot down a bit hard in the workshop.
Well, it's something that, again, going back to that Tesla Rossa, and this is what Moggy said to me, and after driving a few EV conversions, is that pedal feel, and that's what I really wanted in the TVR. Just something that just feels really nice and really progressive. And after driving the TVR forward 1.5 meters, it definitely had that. So I'm really looking forward to driving that a bit more at some point. But there we go.
That should be easy to do now, though, because cars have been drive-by-wire since the 2000s, haven't they? I'm guessing your Polo probably isn't, Alex. That's probably
my Passat was. That was a 2002, and that wasn't an early. I know Volkswagen changed over to drive-by-wire at some point during the Mark IV Golf, so around the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, it kind of, the pedal feel is so important, I think. But no, I think quite a lot of, I'm not going to mention any brands because I think it'd be unfair. But there are certain brands where it's just not right yet. So, yeah.
I was going to say that it got absolutely rubbished. We were talking about kind of faking it and so on, and kind of the experience of driving stuff. There is a project going on at Toyota/Lexus about kind of having a fake manual gearbox and all that. That's what got the press, is the fake manual. You'd have a gear stick that you'd be able to, like a pseudo gear stick that you'd be able to use. And it's actually kind of the tip of the iceberg of quite an interesting project, which I wrote about a couple of years ago, where basically you'd be able to download, like Renault did, where you could download like the sound of an F1 car and have it in your Zoe.
Oh, they did that on the Clio, didn't they?
Actually, it was Clio, not Zoe. Zoe didn't have it, kind of randomly. But in this, you'd be able to download, say, the driving profile of a Celica GT4, a Corolla AE86, a Lexus LFA into your and it would change the way that the torque is metered out, and you'd be able to select whether you wanted it to feel like an automatic or a manual. And you'd have a pseudo clutch pedal and a pseudo gear stick, and it would be able to simulate the experience in terms of throttle responses and cutting off the power as you change gear. And it would be able to do that entirely through controlling the way that the power is metered out. And it's actually quite an interesting project, and it got completely rubbished by petrol heads and also by people on the EV side of things. And I was like, I kind of see what they're doing with it. It's that kind of it's not a case of doing something silly. It's kind of giving people the option to kind of have that sense of control and interacting with the vehicle if they want it. I mean, they've got a Lexus. Have you seen the Lexus electrified concept? It's an electric sports car that they're apparently working on a production version of. And I suspect that's the sort of car where they're going to introduce something like that, where you'll be able to turn it into, Supra or an LFA or something along those lines. They haven't confirmed it yet, but yeah, it was a more interesting project than it got credit for in the press. Yeah. The guy that was developing it was deadly serious about it. It was just like, no, we just want to give people we're experimenting with ways to kind of keep that spirit of driving alive with EVs, and you've got all this scope to do different stuff and attack it in a different way. And this is one of the ways that we're looking at doing. So.
Doesn't Ioniq 5 does that thing with the paddles?
Ioniq 5 does get with the paddles, yeah.
Yeah, so it does them with the paddles. And actually, going back, I've just remembered one thing from you mentioning the Dodge car and stuff. I have heard that Cadillac is coming back to the UK as an EV-only brand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I drove it in Milan, the Caddy.
So do we think they'll be more successful as an EV-only brand? I mean, because I suppose GM don't have any cars in the UK anymore, do they? Because they're all Stellantis group owned, their former brands. Is there any GM brand in the UK anymore?
No, because they were selling, I think, small numbers of Corvettes, weren't they? So,
yeah. Well, I drove the Caddy and I thought that the power was good. It sounded pretty good as well. They did have like a engine note to it, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that was quite good. But it was that day it was the EV3 Kia, as Alex has found that really wowed me. What else did I drive? I drove something else weird. Oh, the Spiker. Is it Spiker? Yeah.
Do you know the weird thing I found out about Cadillac recently? Do you know what the original name for Cadillac was?
Go on.
It was originally called the Henry Ford Company.
Really?
It was originally started by Henry Ford, who then went off and started Ford Motor Company.
No way.
Yeah. Cadillac was, I think, Henry Ford's second automotive. Like Ford Motor Company is Henry Ford's third motor company. After Cadillac was the second, and the first one I can't remember the name of, but something like Detroit. I want to say Detroit Electric, but I don't think it was Detroit Electric. But
yeah, that would be funny having to put it into neutral to restart.
Yeah, well, I think you can stall it and everything. They were talking about doing all sorts of having everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure.
So all the disadvantages as well brought across.
Yeah, but it's a case of and it would roll back if you put your foot on the clutch. It would the clutch pedal. It would allow the vehicle to roll back. So I'm sure it's got other bits and pieces in it as well, but it's designed to give you some more of that control back. I think it's quite an interesting project. I mean, it's maybe it's cheesy, maybe it won't catch on, maybe people won't want it, won't use it, but why not?
So I suppose these are all advantages now of basically the software-defined vehicle. So the software is what defines it.
So going back more to a slightly traditional Christmas-themed part of the podcast today, what does everybody really want? If they had an EV in their stocking, be it an EV conversion, brand new, used, what would really float your boat? I mean, and it could be something that, oh, hi Casey, how you doing? Time to make the hill starts harder. Yeah. I wonder if you'd need a manual license in the UK for that. Good one.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
What would you want in your stocking? And I want everyone else to ask, pop it in the chat as well. I want to see some interesting vehicles in here. You know, what car would you want? What EV? What would be on your Christmas list, chaps?
So we talked a little bit about this the other week. We talked about conversions and what you would and wouldn't do. I would love to do an electrified modern version of a like a Group B car, and it wouldn't start with a genuine Group B chassis. I'd start with something roadworthy and regular production version, and build it to my own spec. I'd love to do something along those lines.
Hopefully, it's not
For me, it's all conversions.
So, like a 6R4, or are we talking like an Audi?
Probably an Audi Quattro. Lancia 037 would be interesting as well. So, yeah.
That sounds pretty hot. What about yourself, Kev?
See, I quite like, they now do resto mods of the original Lancia Delta Integrale, where they do them. Ben Collins has done a review of them where they basically make them work. So they're like modern they're actually the original cars, but they take a really good chassis and just literally build it from scratch again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people say it's wrong, but actually I quite like the style of them. So I'd probably like an EV version of that. So almost build, because people say that it looks a bit like the Ioniq 5N, put an Ioniq 5N powertrain in the Lancia Delta Integrale, because it would probably be quite suitable for it. Batteries is the other thing.
It reminded me of the E-Legend, which I think would probably be on my dream car list if I could, if money was no object. Gorgeous looking thing. No, the E-Legend is the it's an Audi Quattro, but an electric one. It's a beautiful thing. But it's like it's over $1 million, over $1 million quid. So it's not cheap.
Have you seen that actually Citroen there's supposedly some diagrams of a DS, like a premium DS, which looks like the original DS and electric and stuff with wheel fairings and stuff like that. I wonder if they'll make that as a concept, or will they? Citroen seem to be quite brave with some of their, or DS seem to be quite brave with some of their designs. Would they actually bring it out? I mean, that'd be a cool electric car, a modern reimagining of that.
I think the fact that the Renault 5 is done so well, I mean, it's obviously not ready. I've not seen any on the road in the UK, but I know in France they've sold a hell of a lot. So I think that could be a winner for them for sure.
DS needs that halo, doesn't it? I mean, top end of the DS lineup is pretty forgettable. The old DS3 was cool. The new DS4 is really good, actually, really, really good. DS7's competent. It's okay. It's it feels a little bit like a Q5 with some sort of diamond effect bits on it.
Is it Tense, the DSE Tense, the electric one?
E-Tense is their that's their electrified kind of.
Yeah, I've driven them. They're a weird thing, very weird thing. So Foxhound Follies has put Reliant Scimitar, but apparently it's not suitable for conversion. I'm guessing it's really good condition, got beautiful service history and all these other things, and that was the reason I didn't convert my Griffith. Please confirm whether that is or not. Electric Opel Manta 400 Rodmans. Yeah.
It's interesting seeing that. I was actually watching, on Netflix, they've got that documentary on Senna. Now it's a docudrama on Senna and stuff. And seeing that the Rothman, it's like, how much motorsport was sponsored in the 80s by basically cigarette firms? It's like, it was like the sponsorship for everything. You think of all the motorsport events from there. Yeah, alcohol stuff. Was it the Camel Trophy? And
Kevin and I both collect Hot Wheels, and it's interesting seeing this reflected in Hot Wheels form. Like, you can't. So it's a 959. You know what that is, but it's not written on it, right? Like, what that livery is.
Yeah,
it's not written on it. And the same. That's HB cigarettes. You won't see a cigarette logo anywhere on it. And then
I saw an RS6 GT in the same livery as that. Oh yeah, nice. Yeah.
Martini,
but no Martini logo anywhere on it. Just says Team Lancia Racing. So it's interesting.
Martini Racing, wouldn't it, on the back normally?
Yeah.
So we've got KC Talks EV. I just bought a 38 kilowatt hour Ioniq for my Christmas present. Good car.
Saw one of those. for 12k, and they go a long way. My record in the summer was 250 miles to charge at one of those. They're ludicrously efficient. The disadvantage on the second gen one is the charging speed's limited. You can't get above 45.
I'm sure Casey will be charging at home mainly, although Casey's normally borrowing everyone else's cars normally when I see him. Yes, very affordable now. You can get one. I think they start from about 10 grand now.
Yeah, second gen one's about 12 now.
But you go for a Chesil 356 Speedster. Oh yeah, good choice, mate. Like that. Loving that. 911 EV due in 2027 if VHE is still solvent. Very good point and good car. So maybe you'll have to.
You say about brands if they're still solvent. You look at the history of it. How many times have brands like Alfa Romeo and Fiat been allegedly on the verge of bankruptcy, and they still exist?
Yeah, but VW Group, I mean, they are in a lot of debt. But that is there's so much German backing with that company. I mean, it's a biggie, that one. No previous chassis repair would pass as unmodified for DVLA. Okay, wouldn't. Audi Quattro EV, nice.
Look at the E-Legend if you haven't seen it. It is a pretty thing.
Yeah, I think I remember the one you mean. Didn't what's his name? The guy that died, unfortunately. The American
Ken Block, you're thinking?
Yeah, Ken Block, the Gymkhana guy.
He had. Yeah, his was built by Audi. My child number 2 is building a Lego version of it at the moment, actually.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, KC, it's something to aim for, mate. Something to aim for. 251. That's your target. So I was gonna. Now, most people think, oh, my dream car would be the electric TVR Wedgie. Of course, that would be the obvious one. But the more and more I think about it, it's been coming through my head a few times, and is the fact that I know of, and I saw it, and I know it exists, kind of, is a manual electric TVR Cerbera. And I know that Electrogenic have got one, and they haven't built it yet. And it's kind of like, I think it's someone who works there, and I don't think they finished it yet. So in a way, I really want to get my electric TVR out there quick first. But to have an electric manual Cerbera with some really naughty power, that is, and the fact it's got 4 seats, so I could chuck the missus and the kids in. I think that would be a lot higher on my Christmas list. And now you're probably thinking, and I'm probably thinking as well, why didn't I just do that in the first place?
Actually, with the Cerbera, actually Alex will answer this because he's more knowledgeable about cars. Which was the one that was in the film Swordfish?
Speed 6.
That's the one that, it was on Top Gear before they shipped it out, wasn't it? The one that was in the film was on British plates.
Yeah, because wasn't it a rule that any TVR that was in a film had to be on British plates? The TVR had the rule.
Although, just going back to Dean's point about 400 Rothmans, and I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but I am planning the TVR to have the JPS design, black with gold JPS. I think that would be cool. So yeah,
so that's going to be resprayed after, because it's not. It's blue at the moment, isn't it? I think
was Allegro brown.
All right.
Then it was sprayed blue, and yeah, I think with the interior as well, because it's beige and brown. I think black would look fantastic with that. I think that would look pretty tasty. And doing at the moment, it's got silver around the edges and then gold in the blue in the middle. So spray it black, probably rattle can it. So I've got a bit of a plan with this, right? So obviously the budget is completely out the window, and I'm in massive debt with it. So I was thinking maybe I'm just going to call on all the Chargeheads to find out if they've got cans of black spray paint in their garage. Just because this is a green project, chaps. You know, I don't want to be, you know. So, like, congregate all the different black spray paint I can. So it would be like 50 shades of black. rattle can it, because I think that will be funny, and it'll be sustainable. Not sustainable. It's repurposing, isn't it? Because everyone's got a black spray can. You know, it'd be matte black, solid black. It'll be an interesting black.
I've got an old car. Of course, I've got loads of matte black spray paint in the garage.
There you go. I knew it. So
Satin black. I'm more satin black than matte black, but yeah.
Okay. Well, it's just going to be I'm not sure whether it will be a different black per panel or just like actually just black, different blacks. Oh, maybe a bit of this, bit of that. I think that could be an interesting effect. I don't think anybody's done it before. There might be a reason for that, but I'm willing to give it a try. So cool. My favorite automotive photo is Senna sitting on the floor behind the JPS Lotus. Yeah, it was. Do you know what? It was a Lotus Esprit that I saw with the black, and the TVR wedge is kind of Esprit-esque at the front. So I thought that would be good. I'm glad you agree. Kind of. Some fun reactions here. What else we got here? So VAG are 190 billion in debt following Dieselgate, paying for Electrify America. The Cariad software debacle and paying for ZEV credits. Belgium Audi factory now closed and more to follow. Well, I mean, Elon could pick it up, couldn't he? It's like short-changed him.
He was hanging out with Dees, wasn't he? The former chairman of Volkswagen a few years ago during lockdowns, came out to drive the ID3.
Well, he was the one that was actually, in a lot of people's opinion, I think many of the EV channels, whether it's the EV Viking and a few other people, like he is the man to take VW forward. And then I think there was some disagreements of what he was trying to do, and then he was shipped out. So whether that was the right decision or not, I mean, the ID range it's not that great, is it? I quite like the Buzz. I don't not like the look of it, and I think it drives well.
I think some of them came too late, though, didn't they? Those should have been the things they did early on, rather than ID3 was a bit just.
Well, ID3 is a Golf, isn't it? And Golf's a Golf, but I think for my as a Volkswagen man, I felt like the early ID3s didn't have that Volkswagen-ness to them. And I feel a little bit the same about the ID4. There's a certain ID4 familiarity you get getting into a Golf of any age, pretty much, in terms of the feel of everything in it, and you just don't get that in an ID3. And I can't put my finger exactly on why, but there's just something about it that just doesn't quite work. And they're getting there a bit more. I mean, as I say, ID7 is more of a step in the right direction in terms of the way that it responds and the way that it feels and so on and so forth. But even then, they're still trying to catch up on it. And the Buzz. I mean, I've moaned about the Buzz on here before. I like the Buzz, but the Buzz is an almost brilliant car that they've stopped at 90%, which is not a very Volkswagen thing to do, and that really irks me about it. Because a little bit of extra investment on just doing some really clever things like the multivan's got with the seating and so on, and that would have been a really cool car. But by not doing that, it becomes it unfortunately does become a little bit style over substance, which is a shame.
Yeah. I think you nailed it by saying catch up. And this is what was mentioned by the guy that, Donut Media, the guy that, when it was on, the guy that wears glasses, he's got a new YouTube channel, and it's called, God, can't remember. It'll come to me in a second. And Rich Rebuilds asked him the question about the electric Dodge. What did he think? What was his review? And he said, you're paying Tesla played money for the top spec Dodge, the electric Dodge, and it hasn't got warming up the battery for the charging. It hasn't got, fast charging. It hasn't got all the things. Everyone's kind of playing catch up. And I know that I'll bore everyone to tears, especially these chaps, about Tesla being up there when it comes to the technology and all the rest of it. But that's what a lot of the brands are fighting against. And it just what they can do for the money, it's just put on a pedestal as far as I'm concerned. Tesla ran over.
I think a lot of the things with all the brands, if you look now, I remember growing up, there wasn't as much choice with cars. And I think there's too much choice now. So all they've done is they've created a lot of costs to have all these different models. And then there's not enough people to be able to, there's not enough people to be able to buy all these different cars. I think there needs to be a big call, the fact that I could probably tell you what the Skoda version of the Volkswagen car drives like. Could probably tell you what the new Seat one that's based on the ID4 the Tavis scam. Yeah, I can probably guess what they all drive like.
Sounds like.
But I think there's just too much choice, and that's what's not helping the manufacturers. You think of how many versions Stellantis will have based on that one car, and you're just choosing what way you want it to look, really.
And yet, you look. I mean, for me, I talking back Volkswagen range stuff, and another brand that falls into the same category for me is Honda. You think of early 2000s Volkswagen Group stuff, and you had within the Volkswagen Group range, just taking the Lupo, for example. I mean, that was a cheap car. You had the GTI, where it had aluminium panels on it and all sorts of other bits and pieces, and it had a unique engine setup that allowed it to have a 6-speed Golf gearbox in it. So the engine was completely different to the Polo, effectively GTI, because it used a Golf gearbox to put it in there. And then within the same range, you then had the Lupo 3L, which had a magnesium steering wheel, aluminium panels all over it and all the rest of it, and a 3-cylinder diesel engine to do 3 litres per 100 kilometres, which is like 90-something miles per gallon. At the other end of the range, you had then the Phaeton with like W12 engines and all the rest of it and all that sort of stuff in there. And you had like the Golf R32, and all of this stuff was all coming out at the same time. And it was quite an interesting kind of lineup of vehicles. Whereas now it's like, where's the buzz? You know? And I think
it's confirmed by the other guy from Donut Media that VW car enthusiasts are the most geeky, and Alex has just laid it out on a plate there for us.
Reaches over to my shelf. There you go. I've got the sort of stuff that I keep on the shelves in my office.
What the hell is that?
That's a G40.
No, it's not. It's not a G40. It's a part.
It is. No. It's. I'm gonna hold this up the right way. G. It's where is it? There's the G, and there's the 40. So that's the internals of.
I'm going to get something off my garage.
But this one's broken.
It's 1 million cars 2008 Audi. It was on Northampton Audi's wall, and they're having a refurb. And apparently, I can take it. So, not take it. I'm sat amongst many car parts in here, whether it's TVR bonnets and all sorts of stuff. Excuse me, I was flying away. But yeah, we're all car geeks at the end of the day.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
As we've always said, it doesn't need to be as polarized as it is. You know, you can like the heritage of the classic cars and the new stuff. It's about the technology for me. And then you see people like Clarkson saying that he doesn't like EVs. But then you watch Clarkson's farm and he likes the gadgets and the technology. So it's like you can like both.
Well, I hope they have solved the ID3 quality issues. And my dad's car is going to be arriving soon. So hopefully he'll let me take that for a spin. The charging speed is a lot quicker. Apparently it's not glitchy anymore. And the interior is a lot better. Because some of the standard spec ones, the interior was horrible. I think he had the first edition, so it was quite a bit nicer. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that goes.
The windows on the Buzz don't open at all in the back. I mean, we've got on the Rifter at half the price proper electric windows on the sliding doors on the back. The ID Buzz has got fixed piece of glass bonded into the door on a car that starts at 63 grand. It's just a bit.
I've actually ordered 2 ID Buzz cargos. On steel wheels, on steelies. They look quite. I saw one in a car park. It actually looks all right.
Are they really low spec ones with drum brakes on the back as well?
Well, I think they all come with drum brakes on the back.
Better for efficiency, apparently. There we go.
There is a good reason for getting them in that they don't rust like discs do. But
got some nice drums on Trikey just down here. It's more like Fred Flintstone braking, but my controller's broken at the moment. I really want to get that fixed when it gets a bit warmer. Next week, by the way, everybody, we have got a quiz. We've got an EV quiz, and it's going to be fastest finger. No, it's not fastest finger. It's going to be fastest answer first, and I'll try and come up with a prize as well. We're going to make a big fat quiz. So if you can tune in next Sunday, please join us, and we'll have a quiz, which would be good fun.
Just seen a comment from Commuter Branch Line. That is one Alex would probably be into.
VW Buzz on banded Steelies, who slammed to the ground.
How big are the Steelies on the Buzz? Are they as big as the ones you could get on the Scenic? Because the Renault Scenic, the one that looked like a...
They look.
Talked about this before, didn't we? We
Yeah.
talked about this before. Like
Are they now the biggest Steelies on the market? Are they bigger? Are they 20-inch or bigger? I need to know.
I think they're like 19s, but I couldn't really go up to someone's van in a car park and start really studying the tires.
I'm sorry, but I would have been all over that. If I wanted to know the size, I'd be down there with my torchlight in my phone.
Yeah, it was actually the gym car parks. I thought I can't really be there. The gym studying someone's tires.
Yeah, that could cause an issue. Yeah, I think we'll leave it there. But yeah, everyone who can make it next Sunday, we'll have a bit of a quiz, I think we'll have a couple of beers probably. I think I might have a cheeky one or two, and just have a celebration of EV stuff, and see if we can have some fun. But thanks everyone for tuning in tonight during Christmas holiday season, and we'll see everyone next week, hopefully. Have a wonderful Christmas, and we'll see you next time.